Mike?
Yep.
Okay, let's try this again. Can you see?
It says started screen sharing. It normally takes a second to pop up.
Yeah, it takes a second.
There we go.
So how's your week been going? Your holidays and everything?
It was nice and busy.
You're visiting family or friends or anything?
We all took like the home COVID test. So we got together with my wife's family. We were all
Oh,
able
they
to get
have those
together
now,
and,
don't they?
yeah,
They can do a rapid test.
yeah, it's about 15 minutes. I mean, they're not as 100% reliable as, obviously going to a doctor or a clinic or something, but they give more false positives than they do false negatives.
Right.
So, I mean, so if you get a negative, it's pretty certain you are good.
Yeah. Okay, here's Maitreya. Awesome. Yeah, they're all vaccinated?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, so you got to be careful even if they're vaccinated, like that Colin Powell, he died, through a breakthrough case, If you've got like symptoms or if you've got like concomitant factors, you got to really be careful nowadays, especially with this new variant and everything. So you had a nice Thanksgiving then with your family?
Yeah. Hare Krishna, Maitreya.
Okay.
Maitreya, Haribo, how is it? How are you carrying your umbrella everywhere?
No, you can tell people that live here because they don't carry umbrellas. They just wear raincoats and have on a hat or something.
I hear it's called the Pineapple Express. Why the heck do they call it the Pineapple Express?
I'm guessing because the moisture comes from the tropical regions.
Oh, right, from Hawaii or something, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
The same reason they call the Gulf Stream that keeps Europe warm.
Were you just being hyperbolic when you said sandbagging, or were you actually literally?
No, we're not. We have there's a barn down on our property that doesn't. We've had flooding happen in it, so the way we have to solve that is with sandbags.
So you live on a farm?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. You remember Bhima?
Yes.
He appears on the Bhakti Center broadcast YouTube live stream every morning, and they broadcast from about 7:15 to 8 o'clock. And he's always there out in the field with his horses. He's got horses up in Massachusetts.
So do we. So that's a Bhakti Center, you said?
Bhakti Center, yeah, New York.
New York Bhakti
They have
Center.
they have a live YouTube broadcast for Bhagavatam class every morning.
Yeah,
And sometimes Adi Purusha gives class, and
oh, nice.
yeah, it's really pretty awesome. They got a really dynamic center there. You should check it out. I'll send you I'll send you guys the link if you ever want something to do in the morning.
Yeah, send me the link. I'd like to have that.
Mike, you works. Mike, do you have any time from like 7:15? If you do, I'll send you the link too. It's kind of nice to join in there because they really have the transcendental team there. I can't believe all the stuff that they're doing in New York City. I mean, it's really, you either have to be a monk or you have to be rich to live in New York. There's one devotee that died, I can't remember his name. He died of COVID recently, and he had a whole warehouse of Bhaktipad's books, like 600 pallets. And Adi Purusha took half of them and shipped them to New York. And so he's just sitting on them. Some devotees want some, like Christ and Krishna and Song of God, like Nityo wants some of those. He actually recorded Song of God in 1983 in Mumbai, in Bombay. And so that's, Bhaktipada Kirtananda was on his game back then, just perfect classes every single time he gave them. But yeah, those are valuable books. They're all out of print, but so they're there, and he'll actually give them to you if you're willing to pay shipping and make a little bit of a donation. If you want to do those kind of books, Christ and Krishna is a classic. But anyway, we're going to let Mike, read this purport here, text 38. This is your famous verse that you started reading, Maitreya, right? Correct?
Yeah.
You said something like that. So go ahead and read the purport, Mike.
Sure. Purport: Lord Krishna now directly says that Arjuna should fight for the sake of fighting because he desires the battle. There is no consideration of happiness or distress, profit or loss, victory or defeat in the activities of Krishna consciousness. That everything should be performed for the sake of Krishna is transcendental consciousness. So there is no reaction to material activities. He who acts for his own sense gratification, either in goodness or in passion, is subject to the reaction, good or bad. But he who has completely surrendered himself in the activities of Krishna consciousness is no longer obliged to anyone, nor is he a debtor to anyone, as one is in the ordinary course of activities. It is said, Davarshi bhutapta runam piturnam na kinkaro nayam urnicha urjan sarvatmana ya saranam saranyam gato makundam parihritya kartam. Anyone who's completely surrendered unto Krishna, Mukunda, giving up all other duties, is no longer a debtor, nor is he obliged to anyone, not the demigods, nor the sages, nor the people in general, nor kinsmen, nor humanity, nor forefathers. 11.541. That is the indirect hint given by Krishna to Arjuna in this verse, and the matter will be more clearly explained in the following verses.
You know, that's what I was saying the other day. I remember I remarked about this particular concept of not having any more obligations or duties, and not a debtor to anyone. I mean, just surrendering to Krishna is such a good deal. Plus you get eternal life and eternal bliss and knowledge and all that stuff. And you get freedom from birth, death, old age, and disease. I mean, who wouldn't take that up? We have to be kind of like transcendental salesmen, you know. Salesmen will present a problem and then they'll fix it in 30 seconds. You know, when you're selling a book, especially, you got to kind of like make a pitch and you know, we can't convince somebody, but Prabhupada's books will convince anybody. And if you read it, Prabhupada said, if you read just one word, they can become Krishna conscious. I was just reading in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Let me show this to you. This particular verse here. Look at that. Any devotee who believes that the holy name of the Lord is identical with the Lord is a pure devotee, even though he may be in the neophyte stage. By his association, others may also become Vaishnavas. And he was talking about, you know, how even a dog eater, if he chants the holy name once without offense, he can be eligible to perform Vedic sacrifices. You know, that means he's already accumulated all this pious activity and it's purified him completely. And so in the similarly, you know, if you read one word, even in Prabhupada's books, it can actually, it's so powerful. We have to have faith, you know, that this is actually.
It can set someone on the path. The path then can take lifetimes to complete. So it's not like if someone touches a book or reads a word, that's it, they're going back to Godhead. So
not necessarily, but it sets them on the road. I mean, even
yes.
Haridas Thakur said,
It's a
Nam
selfless
Abbas.
act, because we will probably never see the result of that in this lifetime, but we have to rest assured that just like if you infect somebody with a dangerous disease, they'll eventually develop symptoms of the disease. Prabhupada said Krishna's disease is Satchidananda.
Yeah. It is, and Krishna. I think I might have explained this analogy to you guys before. I compare Krishna to a tar baby in that one Uncle Remus fairy tale. You know, it's kind of a racist fairy tale, but he's the Briar Rabbit. You know, he was in the patch, and he in this tar baby. Krishna's like a tar baby. The more you interact with him, the more you get stuck, and eventually you just get stuck to him. So Krishna's like, that's like the disease, you know. But he will eventually purify you as long as you start on the path, and Krishna will eventually bring you all the way back to God. And I mean, it's inevitable for everyone. No one stays in the material world forever. As far as
apply ourselves a little bit, I heard a lecture just yesterday or the day before. Prabhupada was saying, and even if you think, why should I chant this Hare Krishna mantra? This is a Hindu mantra. And Prabhupada said, all right, so let's say you don't chant Hare Krishna, but you're still drinking water you're still feeling the satisfaction.
Oh yeah,
from
I
the
saw that
water.
too.
So you can just think this is God. This is, and if you've been to the temple and seen the image of Krishna, then you're thinking of Krishna while you're thinking like that. Such a liberal understanding of what.
Yeah, Prabhupada
Krishna
said even if the wino thinks that Krishna is the taste of that wine, even that,
I tried that out one
you
time in
can't get
San
any more
Francisco.
liberal than that. You can't.
Yeah.
Lord Chaitanya is the most liberal incarnation, the most magnificent incarnation. His goal is to deliver even the Chandalas. He told Advaitacharya to go to Bengal and deliver all the Chandalas. So Maitreya, you want to read the Sanskrit synonyms and translation?
All right. Esha te bihita shanke buddhir yoge tvimam shrinu buddhya yukto yaya parta kaman bandham prahasyasi. Esha, all this, te, unto you, abhihita, described, shanke, in an analytical study, buddhi, intelligence, yoge, in work without fruitive result, tu, but, imam, this, shrinu, just here, buddhya, by intelligence, yukta, dovetailed, yaya, by which, parta, o son of Prita, karma bandham, bondage of reaction, prahasyasi, you can be released from. Translation. Thus far, I have described this knowledge to you through analytical study. Now listen as I explain it in terms of working without fruitive results. O son of Prita, when you act in such knowledge, you can free yourself from the bondage of works.
All right, the purport here. First paragraph. It's a long one. According to the Nirukti or Vedic dictionary, Shankya means that which describes things in detail, and Shankya refers to that philosophy which describes the real nature of the soul. And yoga involves controlling the senses. Arjuna's proposal not to fight was based on sense gratification. Forgetting his prime duty, he wanted to cease fighting, but he thought that by not killing his relatives and kinsmen, he would be happier than by enjoying the kingdom after conquering his cousins and brothers, the sons of Dhritarashtra. In both ways, the basic principles were for sense gratification. Happiness derived from conquering them and happiness derived from seeing kinsmen alive are both on the basis of personal sense gratification, even at a sacrifice of wisdom and duty. Krishna, therefore, wanted to explain to Arjuna that by killing the body of his grandfather, he would not be killing the soul proper. And he explained that all individual persons, including the Lord himself, are eternal individuals. They were individuals in the past, they are individuals in the present, and they will continue to remain individuals in the future because all of us are individual souls eternally. We simply change our bodily dress in different manners, but actually we keep our individuality even after liberation from the bondage of material dress. An analytical study of the soul and the body has been very graphically explained by Lord Krishna. And this descriptive knowledge of the soul and the body from different angles of vision has been described here as Sankhya, or in terms of the Nirukti dictionary. This Sankhya has nothing to do with the Sankhya philosophy of the atheist Kapila. Long before the impostor Kapila's Sankhya, the Sankhya philosophy was expounded in the Srimad Bhagavatam by the true Kapila, the incarnation of Lord Krishna, who explained it to his mother, Devahuti. It is clearly explained by him that the Purusha, or the Supreme Lord, is active and that he creates by looking over the Prakriti. This is accepted in the Vedas and in the Gita. The description in the Vedas indicates that the Lord glanced over the Prakriti, or nature, and impregnated it with atomic individual souls. All these individuals are working in the material world for sense gratification, and under the spell of the material energy, they are thinking of being enjoyers. This mentality is dragged to the last point of liberation when the living entity wants to become one with the Lord. This is the last snare of Maya, or sense gratificatory illusion, and it is only after many, many births of such sense gratificatory activities that a great soul surrenders unto Vasudeva, Lord Krishna, thereby fulfilling the search after the ultimate truth. I was just wondering, maybe one of you guys know, why did this other imposter Kapila propound the Sankhya philosophy? Was he like a copycat and try to get away with like propounding something in somebody else's name, just like some kind of plagiarist?
Sounds like it. I don't know that much about it. He mentions this.
It's kind of like
third canto right now. And so Prabhupada's talking a lot. He's, there's a few purports where he mentions this other Kapila.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like that would be a kind of like a reasonable explanation, because some people want to just rip off somebody else's name, like that Eddie Murphy film Coming to America. I can't remember actually what it was, but anyway, also the imposter Vasudev. They want to imitate Krishna. They're not Krishna, but he took the form of Krishna, and he took the symbols and he took the weapons, but they're all fake. He even had 2 extra arms, And then, when Krishna in the assembly and all the other Vaishnava, all his cabinet members were listening to the threats by Vasudev, they just started laughing really, really hard because,
What was his name? What was that fellow's name?
Pardon?
What was that demon's name?
Pandraka, maybe?
Pandraka, yeah, that's right. Pandraka.
Yeah. Yeah, he was a fake Vasudev. There's a lot of people that just like want to get all the credit, and then they put themselves in the place and then make up their own thing just to like fly under the radar, I guess. I don't know.
It's a surprising psychological thing. There was a devotee in San Diego years ago. He passed away a couple decades ago, but he was a Ayurvedic doctor. And then later he started telling some devotees that actually he was an incarnation of Lord Chaitanya, which what? And there was devotees that believed him, and that
for sure. Everybody,
it was just bewildering to me. How could you? What? Why would you accept that? And, maybe he had some Shakti, from his
for sure,
or whatever, and he actually bewildered some devotees.
Well, it's really it's always been bad in India, but and I was looking under Wikipedia and all these so-called incarnations that claim to be God. There's dozens of them. Even in America, there's always like somebody that's trying to like imitate the Supreme. That's why you always have to check, in the Shastra. There's dozens of Shastric references to Lord Chaitanya, especially in the Bhagavatam. Mike, you want to read the last or the next couple of? Let's see here. Yeah, read the rest of this purport here, beginning with
Arjuna.
Which one is it? Yeah,
right there, Arjuna. Okay.
Yeah.
Arjuna had already accepted Krishna as his spiritual master by surrendering himself unto him. Śikṣāṣtaham sarimam tvam papanam. Consequently, Krishna will now tell him about the working process in Buddha Yoga or Karma Yoga, or in other words, the practice of devotional service only for the sense gratification of the Lord. This Buddha Yoga is clearly explained in chapter 10, verse 10, as being direct communion with the Lord, who is sitting as Paramatma in everyone's heart. But such communion does not take place without devotional service. One who is therefore situated in devotional or transcendental loving service to the Lord, or in other words, in Krishna consciousness, attains to this stage of Buddha Yoga by the special grace of the Lord. The Lord says, therefore, that only to those who are always engaged in devotional service out of transcendental love does he award the pure knowledge of devotion in love. In that way, the devotee can reach him easily in the ever blissful kingdom of God. Thus, the Buddha Yoga mentioned in this verse is the devotional service of the Lord, and the word Sankhya mentioned herein has nothing to do with the atheistic Sankhya Yoga enunciated by the impostor Kapila. One should not therefore misunderstand that the Sankhya Yoga mentioned herein has any connection with the atheistic Sankhya. Nor did that philosophy have any influence during that time, nor would Lord Krishna care to mention such godless philosophical speculations. Real Sankhya philosophy is described by Lord Kapila in the Srimad Bhagavatam, but even that Sankhya has nothing to do with the current topics. Here, Sankhya means analytical description of the body and the soul. Lord Krishna made an analytical description of the soul just to bring Arjuna to the point of Buddha Yoga or Bhakti Yoga. Therefore, Lord Krishna's Sankhya and Lord Kapila's Sankhya, as described in the Bhagavatam, are one and the same. They are all Bhakti Yoga. Lord Krishna said, therefore, that only the less intelligent class of men make a distinction between Sankhya Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. Sankhya Yogao Prathag Balu Pravadanti Na Pandita. Of course, atheistic Sankhya Yoga has nothing to do with Bhakti Yoga. Yet, the unintelligent claim that the atheistic Sankhya Yoga is referred to in the Bhagavad-gītā.
Go ahead.
One should therefore understand that Buddha Yoga means to work in Krishna consciousness in the full bliss and knowledge of devotional service. One who works for the satisfaction of the Lord only, however difficult such work may be, is working under the principles of Buddha Yoga and finds himself always in transcendental bliss. By such transcendental engagement, one achieves all transcendental understanding automatically by the grace of the Lord, and thus his liberation is complete in itself without making any extraneous endeavors to acquire knowledge. There is much difference between work in Krishna consciousness and work for fruitive results, especially in the matter of sense gratification, for achieving results in terms of family or material happiness. Buddha Yoga is therefore the transcendental quality of the work that we perform.
So what does Prabhupada mean when he says analytical description of the body and the soul? What does that mean? What is the process and what is the result of that analytical study?
So are you asking in terms of Sankhya Yoga?
Well, I'm asking in terms of what Krishna is trying to imply to Arjuna here, what he's trying to teach Arjuna to bring him to the point of Buddha Yoga or Bhakti Yoga. And how is it an analytical study? Like that word kind of like,
yeah,
it seems like
so,
analytical means, something that's from the viewpoint of our senses, but actually it's actually based on transcendental knowledge, isn't it?
In this sense, analytical means, like if you compare it with the 12th chapter, which is just about devotional service, it's starkly different. He's describing things like how the soul progresses from boyhood to youth to old age. But the soul, so he's describing lots of things about how the soul is different from matter. So that's an analytical description. It's only transcendental because Krishna is saying it and because it pertains to the part and parcel of Krishna. But otherwise, it's describing the soul by comparing it and by describing it with, it's how it's different from the body and how the body only exists because of the soul. And in the Bhagavatam, in the section in the third canto where Kapila Dev is speaking about Sankhya philosophy, it's similar. He's describing different types of yoga, and eventually the Sankhya Yoga means, like, for instance, understanding the activities of the Purusha avatars. It's a Leela of Krishna to create the material world. And when pure devotees ask about that, like when Parikshit Maharaj asked Shukadeva Goswami to describe that Leela, he's asking about it with the same intensity as he's listening to the pastimes of the inhabitants of Vrindavan. Yeah. It's also a pastime of Krishna. It's just that these ones that are, frankly, they sound like they're more for neophyte devotees are more like Sankhya, because the more advanced devotees are more inclined to just hear the pastimes of Krishna, whereas Sankhya isn't pastimes. It's, it's a philosophy of how that helps extricate conditioned souls from their conditioning in the material world.
Yeah, we can hear about all these different things, and it's actually very good for neophytes to listen to these things like the Purusha avatars and the creation of the universe. The whole beginning of the Bhagavatam is delineated like that, and you have to go through step by step in order to reach the highest pinnacle. Otherwise,
exactly. It's all devotional service. That's one important point, is that it's just because it's Sankhya. So it's not, it is different than hearing about the pastimes of Krishna and Vrindavan, but at the same time, that's not to say that it's not devotional service.
Yeah, I was just reading about the pastimes in Vrindavan. The last chapter that I read before the one I'm reading now was the Vrindavan pastimes, where, like Lord Chaitanya after the Rath Yatra, they went with his devotees, and Ramananda Roy was there, and he would sing some verses, and they would have a conversation about Radharani and all these different, like, unbelievably blissful, really deep nectarian pastimes that they were enacting. And actually they would enact them, on Krishna's birthday and Janmashtami, Lord Chaitanya dressed up as a cowherd boy. And all these things, and he would one time he dressed up as Lakshmi, and that was that's a really interesting pastime. The whole idea in one purport, Bhaktisiddhanta explains the whole idea. This is the Jagannath festival, the Rath Yatra, the meaning behind the Rath Yatra. What is the meaning behind Rath Yatra? Do you know, Maitreya?
Yeah, it's the gopis bringing Krishna back to Vrindavan.
Yeah. I mean, because she's not happy there. When Lord Chaitanya mentioned that verse, I'm not happy here, because you got all these kshatriyas and everybody's, dressed in military attire and got the horses and chariots and the rattling chariots and everything. And I want to go back to the bank of the Reva underneath the Vitasi tree. And it's just so sweet. And so Lord Chaitanya was playing the role of Radharani and Jagannath. He was bringing Jagannath back to Vrindavan, which is the ultimate abode, That's where all the Gaudiya Vaishnavas want to go, is to Vrindavan. If you have a goal in mind like that, you can actually set that. It's very important to make goals, even in materialistic life, you set a goal. But if you know the goal is to live forever in Vrindavan. And so I read the Srimana Shiksha, and I gave a class actually in Gaur Pranim. Bhakti Vigyan Goswami had a whole purport of text 3, and it says Raghunath Das Goswami specifically says here that if you have the desire to live with love in Vraja, life after life, and directly serve the eternally young couple, then you should remember Smara Sputam Premam Nityam. Nityam means incessantly, and Premam means love. Sputam means very clearly. He says, if you want these two desires to have constantly with love and very clearly, remember Sarupam Srurupam Saganam Iha Tasrajatam Api. You need to remember Swarup Damodar Goswami and Srila Rupa Goswami and their associates, all their followers. That's very important, because all this knowledge is coming down from Lord Chaitanya. There is no other sampradaya that teaches this sweet essence of the Vrindavan Leela.
So I would say part of the ecstasy is for devotees on the path to relish that. And then in order to increase the numbers of the devotees who are able to relish that, we have to learn these Shankya philosophies so that we can preach.
Shankya philosophy.
Yes, for instance, what's being taught in the second chapter of the Bhagavad-gītā.
Yeah,
Understanding like this next verse, Nehabi Kramanasasti, these aren't verses that you'll hear the most advanced devotees reciting to each other all the time. But we have to become fixed up in this knowledge in order to recruit other conditioned souls who are ready from the material world, so that they can also appreciate the Vrindavan pastimes. Otherwise, the number of those that appreciate the Vrindavan pastimes, if there's no active preaching, will go down by year as the advanced devotees die off, and the devotees that can appreciate those pastimes. The only way to increase the numbers is by learning the basic philosophy, and the ecstasy here is that you can convince others to give up material life, and this how material.
Just like that verse from the CC that I just read, you can actually convince, even if you're a neophyte, there's no bar to actually helping somebody become a Vaishnava. That gave me a little hope, because I'm definitely a neophyte. So, like if you just believe that Krishna is in his name, and if you actually understand that and chant with that attitude, just like we're hearing all these scriptures right now, if you hear the holy name in the same way, just coming off the page, if you hear the holy name like that constantly with attention, then you can actually, if you believe that Krishna is his name, then you can actually convince somebody else about Krishna. And it's just a simple thing. And it may seem even, do you know Edith Best? I think her name is Urmila.
Yes.
She commented on that, and she said, this is very difficult to understand, this whole concept that even a neophyte can actually convince somebody about the holy name. They can actually influence them to become Vaishnavas.
Well, her comment was that her comment when she posted is that it's very mysterious and difficult to understand. I don't necessarily agree with everything everybody posts, but she's entitled to that opinion.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
I'm glad.
But I was saying, if you remember, I said that Haridas Thakur pretty much understood
yes, that's
the
right.
Nama Bas.
Yeah.
No, I was thinking of that pastime with Gopinath, or what was his name? Somebody Gopal, I forget his name, but he was like questioning Haridas Thakur. He was saying even the Nambas can attain liberation. And
The analogy of the sun rising is a sublime comparison.
right, yeah, that's just such a beautiful analogy. You want to read the text 40, Maitreya?
Nehabhikrama nasosti pratyavayona vidyate swalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bayat. Na, there is not, iha, in this yoga, abhikram, in endeavoring, nasha, loss, asti, there is, pratyavaya, diminution, na, never, vidyate, there is, swalpam, a little, api, although, asya, of this, dharmasya, occupation, trayate, releases, mahata, from very great, bayat, danger. Translation, in this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear.
I mean, this even underlines that fact, that even a non-boss can protect you from the worst dangerous kind of fear, So it's like, our meeting is going to end in 10 minutes here. So 6:34 or 44, we're going to have to get off here. But yeah, I mean, even just a little bit, can protect you from the most dangerous type of fear. Mike, do you know what the most dangerous type of fear is?
No, not in.
Okay, so the most dangerous type of fear is falling down from the human form of life into an animal form of life. I was actually talking with my neighbor about that. You can actually, he's a little bit favorable, as his daughter actually did a piece, like a multimedia piece on me. She was supposed to do a piece on some politician, but she blew her off. And so he told his daughter, that guy next door, he's pretty interesting. Why don't you do a piece on him? So she did like, a blog and a video and an essay. And so, he was saying that he didn't believe it. He didn't say, oh, I don't think that anybody could actually fall down from the human form of life. There's evolution and there's de-evolution. But it could go either way, But Krishna consciousness can protect you from that kind of fear. And it is fear, for a devotee anyway. The worst kind of fear is like being forgetful of Krishna, and animals cannot understand Krishna. They don't know. They're just eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. For a karmi, like punishment and suffering, that's bad. But for a devotee, the worst kind of suffering is and the most dangerous kind of fearful situation is not being able to remember Krishna. So that's the most dangerous type of fear. I guess I'll read one paragraph here. Activity in Krishna consciousness, or acting for the benefit of Krishna without expectation of sense gratification, is the highest quality of work. Even a small beginning in such activity finds no impediment, nor can that small beginning be lost at any stage. Any work begun on the material plane has to be completed, otherwise the whole attempt becomes a failure. But any work begun in Krishna consciousness has a permanent effect, even though not finished. Performer of such work is therefore not at a loss, even if his work in Krishna consciousness is incomplete. 1% done in Krishna consciousness bears permanent results, so that the next beginning is from the point of 2%. Whereas in material activity without 100% success, there's no profit. Ajamil performed his duty in some percentage of Krishna consciousness, but the result he enjoyed in the end was 100% by the grace of the Lord. There's a nice verse in this connection from Srimad Bhagavatam 1.5.17. Twakta svardaman charanam bhujam hare bhajan apakvo tapatet tato yadi yatrakva vabhadram abud amusyakim kovarta apto bhajatam swadharmata. If someone gives up his occupational duties and works in Krishna consciousness and then falls down on account of not completing his work, what is the loss on his part? And what can one gain if one performs his material activities perfectly? Or as the Christians say, what profit of a man if he gain the whole world and yet suffer the loss of his eternal soul. So it's like, in the material world, you have to complete a thing completely. It's like being pregnant, you can't be like half pregnant. That's a material example, but in order to have success, you have to complete a thing. But in Krishna consciousness, it's incremental. So actually, I guess I'll just read the rest of so we're another paragraph. Material activities and their results end with the body, but work in Krishna consciousness carries a person again to Krishna consciousness, even after the loss of the body. At least one is sure to have a chance in the next life to be born again as a human being, either in the family of a great cultured Brahmana or rich aristocratic family that will give one further chance for elevation. That is the unique quality of work done in Krishna consciousness. I mean, so that's another like a selling point for Krishna consciousness. You don't even have to do it all. You just do a little bit, and then it protects you from the most dangerous kind of fear.
There was a devotee recently posted a picture of his house that he grew up in New England. It was a big, gigantic mansion. And right away, the verse came to mind, Suchinam Shrimatam Gehe Yoga Brashta Vijayate. Those who don't complete their work in one lifetime, they're born again in a family of Brahmins or aristocracy, and they can start again. So I said, welcome back, Prabhu. Haribol.
Yeah, right. That's a good one. That might be, you never know who these devotees are, who they were in their last life. That's why you have to be really careful when you're dealing with devotees, because they could be like, I was just reading in the chapter that I'm reading now, Lord Chaitanya, before everybody left from the first Rath Yatra, he was like glorifying all the devotees like anything. And he was like singling them out one by one and saying all their good qualities. And he pointed out that, so many different devotees. I forgot what I was going to say, but, he was saying that there's this one devotee, Satyaraj Khan, and somebody else from a certain district in India. He was a materialistic person. Apparently he was working for the king, a Muslim king, but he actually was a pure devotee. And externally, it looked like he was actually doing all this materialistic things, but actually he was a pure devotee inside, and he was always thinking of Krishna. In fact, one time he was way up on a high platform with the king, like up on his throne, and somebody from behind, there was a sunshine. And so this one servant of the king, the Muslim king, brought up a peacock feather. And so he put that peacock feather behind the king's head, and whatever his name was, that pure devotee who was a businessman or a governmental servant, he remembered Krishna and he fell off the platform. And the king thought he died. So he was very seriously injured or he was dead. And so he got down from the throne and picked him up and revived him. But he said, where's your pain? And he said, I don't really have any pain, And but the king actually, even though he was a Muslim and, he was very intelligent, and he asked him, why did you fall down like that? He said, well, I have kind of an epilepsy, and the king really didn't even believe him. He knew he was like a pure devotee. So even though he might appear to be a materialistic person or engaged in all kinds of things, if you really understand how a person underneath, you can never tell who a Vaishnava is. And
Chaitanya Charitamrita is very important for this. It is the only scripture that ties together, because Lord Chaitanya didn't leave anything besides the Śikṣāṣtaka. And he sent the Goswamis to Vrindavan, but they mostly wrote in Sanskrit, and it didn't affect the devotees in Bengal, didn't have anything because they couldn't read Sanskrit.
Right.
Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami wrote the Chaitanya Charitamrita largely in Bengali, and it describes how to be a devotee, how to behave, how to act towards other Vaishnavas.
Right.
And then it's all combined with the nectar of Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. It's an amazingly important literature.
Oh yeah, it's so beautiful to read the Bengali because it's all in meter. It's all in what do you call it, couplet. Every single line rhymes. How did Krishnadas Kaviraj do that? He was like 150 years old.
He
couldn't
doesn't know
even.
how he did it either. He said at the end, there's so many verses where he said, I can hardly see and my hands are shaking and yet I
Yeah.
go on writing. This is a miracle. I don't know how this is
Yeah,
happening.
absolutely. And even Prabhupada, he went on writing to the very end.
Yes.
On his deathbed, he was murmuring into the dictaphone machine, the third chapter.
We read
Anyway,
that
we're gonna
purport,
have
the
to-
one that you can see, and it's a brilliant essay, that whole purport, that he's barely, that this moving, everything is acting, moving by the will of Krishna, this consciousness.
Oh
this
yeah.
consciousness.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's what we have to do all the time. Just let Krishna, let go and let God. We're gonna have to end it now because we're less than 1 minute remaining. But thank you so much for again, checking us out. And the next one will be Wednesday, of course.
Right.
So we'll begin. Which word do we leave off here?
We're on 41.
Text 41. Okay.
The other side.
Hare Krishna Prabhu's Hare Bo. Gaur Nitai.